Hello everyone, this is Women's Grandmaster Sabina Foisor. Welcome back to St. Louis Chess Club's YouTube channel and welcome back to my lesson. This video is going to be focused on games of the week, games that I chose for today will be 3. We'll see how many of those will have the chance to go over. I hope all of them, because I found them very interesting and I think there's so much we can learn from them. Without further ado, oops. I try to keep the chat open, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to do so because I'm not sure if it will work. Just a moment. Maybe not. Because then you guys will just hear me twice. Okay, let's get started. The first game that I chose for today was played in the European Club Cup, I believe it was, between Grandmaster Svane and Gata Kamsky. Gata is grandmaster and friend. I felt bad I had to choose one of his games that he lost, but I think this game has quite a lot of interesting things to talk about, and I hope it will be helpful for everyone. So the game started as follows: d4, d5, c4, a6, knight f3, knight f6, knight bd2. This line has become more popular against the Slav defense. Of course, more normal things to be played here: knight c3 or e3 for white. This has become a little bit popular, and the idea is that, okay, you are messing up the development of your dark square bishop, but in the same time you are you have the knight protecting each other, and also you can capture in c4. You're both from c3 and d2, you're supporting the e4 pawn push, so you're not worried about that so much. Most people play bishop f5 in this position, but in this specific game, Gata decided to play g6, b3, bishop g7, bishop b2, castle, and now white has to proceed with their development as well. So of course e3 first. We start with e3, bishop e2, castle, everything like very normal, and then eventually white is going to attack the center and give themselves more space. Black is trying to do something similar, of course. In many d4, d5s, black is struggling with this bishop in c8, so wherever you have the opportunity, whenever you have it to take it out, you should do so. So black played bishop g4, and e6 was Gata's choice. Kind of playing in a Meran style, but now after the bishop is out, which it can be given for the knight in f3. Knight bd7 is a little bit is very common as well, and the idea for black is of course to keep alive the opportunity to attack the center at some point with c5 or e5. This way you still have those opportunities ready, but you kind of try to keep a more solid position temporarily. Castle, knight bd7. And in this position, it is kind of normal for white to take advantage of the fact that black's bishop is in g4 and is stuck there. So you want to have something, right? So you'll get the bishop pair by playing h3. You're forcing black to capture here. Bishop f5 is an option, but then there would be some g4. Bishop e4, and then maybe knight e5, and this bishop will be trapped somehow, so you're better off just taking, just to avoid issues. And I think knight takes f3 could be normal. But bishop takes f3 is nice as well, with keeping, again, opportunities to play e4 for white. And we're seeing now a position with the bishop pair. I think the bishop pair is very strong in a lot of situations. When the position is closed, obviously you may not be able to know to take advantage of it as much, but with this pawn structure, e4 usually helps white very much. And if there's a trade, then there will be d5. It's a very typical idea for white as a plan. And black kind of has to stay a little bit restricted. Gata played a5 here. Queen c2, queen b8. The idea of queen b8 is to free this rook to be able to be brought on the side of the board, but it's also potentially supporting some b5s. And also with the bishop being in g7, you also may want to have control over these dark squares, but this is kind of a cool, typical idea. The position is really balanced. You cannot say that someone is much better. What I liked about this game, the reason I chose it, you will see, is that white has a lot of time for maneuvering. And if you're not able to find some way of counterplay, it just seems like white just step by step improves. This is the reason why I showed this game. I want you guys to pay attention to the way white improves each step of the way. So rook c1. And obviously we're putting the rook here to maybe have the chance at some point to take, but also we can consider c5. You're keeping the tensions. You're not in a rush to make any trades. Now white is playing a3. In case of a4, you always have b4 to get a little bit more space. Knight e8. And now e4. Why knight e8? Well, with black you need something to do, and I think e5 is certainly something you have to play. You just need to be ready mentally to do it, because in a way you are opening up the center, so you're helping white's bishop pair. But if you don't do it, then you're restricted. Knight e8 somehow can help with that, because you're opening up your bishop. But with knight e8, you're going away from the control of the e4 square, and now it is white who gets to play e4, which is a move that I told you will be part of white's plan anyways. Kind of have to take, or else, you may lose something there. Knight takes e4, and now black is coming back to f6 to offer the trade. Now, personally, once again, I do believe this move I would try to play it with black. I would not really want to play such passive position unless I really, really have to. I feel that this is in a way necessary. Many people don't like to push e5 when they have a fianchettoed bishop, because it is often perceived that white could pass by you and then your bishop will stay closed. But thankfully we'll have f5 ideas and then e4, and we'll get to trade that bishop or at least open it. Gata played knight f6. And now, because white has managed to trade those pawns, open up the position a little bit, they're going back for knight g3 with the idea of avoiding more trades, because black is lacking space. Knight e8 back, and now, because e5 will be an idea that black is considering, white is retreating or returning on the e file to try to stop that pawn push. Knight d6, rook a2 d1. So now you've placed your pieces with white on central files to control a lot of the squares, a lot of both of the pushes, c5 and e5, and let's see what happened next. All right, queen e7, putting pressure on d4, of course. And now I really, really like what white chose to do, because d5 could be a move you want to play in order to open your bishop pair, but you're not rushing, because you have the control in the center, and black does not have a simple way to open it up. It stays this solid. All of white's pieces are well placed. White can think of a way to open up a new front, and he did so. h4 with the h5. rook c8, h5. Knight f6, bishop c1. And this bishop is going to be brought on this other side of the board to help with the attack. Black needs to do something, needs to attack something, and this is the only way they can do things. But we're not going to touch, we're not going to trade. White pushed c5. I like this move very much. Knight back, and now he played bishop f4. Though I feel that maybe bishop g5 would have been a slightly better approach, or maybe even h6 first, because you're keeping the knight pinned, and then maybe you have some options to bring your queen to f4 and somehow put more pressure. But bishop f4 was chosen by white, and now bishop e5. This is not necessarily something that white wants to do, in my opinion, to trade the bishop pair. But if you don't, I mean, he probably didn't want to go bishop g5, and he's thinking if we get to trade this bishop, white is going to be able to continue try to bring pieces to attack black's king. So that was basically the idea. The queen side is blockaded. There's no way for black to open up. Any a4 we can play b4, any b4 we can play a4. So that will be the way things will go on that side of the board. Black has no way to try to open up the position. They just have to try to stay and defend. So step by step, white can improve after the trade. Queen c1. So the queen could be brought to the attack later on. It wasn't meant to be there yet. Queen d2 first, and now h6. Pushing the bishop back, and now it is time to make this decision. There are some holes in the position, so we're bringing our knight to a slightly better location. We'll see on which one of those will go. And black has decided to play f5. Now, while this may be a necessity, you have to remember that this pawn unfortunately stays a backwards pawn. It's going to be weak. You're opening up that indeed, but that pawn could be, you know, causing a lot of damage in black's position. 96. There's an outpost. We're bringing our knight to a slightly better location. If you ever take it, of course, bishop takes. That pawn will be weak. G7 is weak too. Black would not want to give up the bishop for the knight, so they chose to retreat. And now we need some kind of plan for white. And I think it would be nice for white to try to double on the e pawn. But instead, white did do that, but did not consider black's counterplay, did not consider that black could actually have something. And this was a really nice idea that black came up with. Queen e7 to bring the queen to h4, try to get this h6 pawn. We brought it all the way there, and it doesn't seem like black can get it. But if there is a way for them to get it, black will not have such a bad position after all, because the bishop will come back to g7, keep the king safe, and we won't be able to do so much. And I think this is a moment where white could have played a little bit better. Maybe play g3, maybe go bishop g3. Anyways, that bishop needed to be moved from there in order to put pressure on the e6 pawn. Just making sure that black would not have the opportunity to bring in the queen to take the h6 pawn. Instead, this move was played, which allowed queen h4, and now it is impossible to stop the capture of the h6 pawn. The only way white was able to do that is by actually trading the bishop, and now black didn't take, of course, because if you take rook takes e6, that was the whole point. But this knight f4 intermediate move might have been a move that white missed, and protecting this pawn, and now this is weak. So we're going to have the opportunity to take it. Rook e3, and now, again, we're not taking the pawn just yet, because if you do, there's this kind of cute idea, d5, and we're trying to open this, and we're trying to have these checks. If you take like this, why can't we play g3 immediately? Because of queen g5. So what's the difference? This is the difference. Okay, we have a check knight, which we didn't have before. So this is a very beautiful pawn sacrifice in order to free a square that we can utilize for the attack. And this part of the game was played well by both players, I think. Black took the exchange and now played queen e7 to keep the e6 pawn protected. Now that with the exchange up, it's still not a big deal for black because that knight in d6 is basically the killer, the strongest piece ever. You cannot do anything about it. I love this knight here on the south post. You can't. The only way you get rid of it is by sacrificing your exchange back if you see a threat. And now queen takes g7, rook takes there, and for some reason black did not go for the capture of this pawn. Maybe this was the worrisome idea, but you really need to be ready that you're not going to be able to take advantage of your exchange. You have to give the exchange back in this position and just, you know, keep the safety of your king. Queen would go to f6, maybe the rook could go f8, f7, try to trade, and I think this position should be, despite the weak king, black should be able to hold without any problems. I mean, but it's not so difficult. I mean, depending on the time that both players had here, it's not so easy to make that decision, I think. Maybe black thought that they had the chance to stay a little bit longer in this position and not give back the exchange immediately. And so Gata played rook a7, and that was a mistake. After this move, white is able to simply destroy all of these weaknesses that black has stayed with. And like, this is weak, this is weak. And then if these pawns stay passed, white can simply march them, and there will be nothing that black will be able to do. And so after rook a7, forcing the rook trades, queen f8, queen takes e6, and now black does not quite have a way to take advantage of the situation. There's no way to coordinate the queen and the rook to try to take over white's a king, and now a few checks, after which b6. Black had one check, but now after b5, there's no way to stop those pawns. Queen d8, final blunder, but it really doesn't matter here anymore. Any other move also wouldn't have helped, because white is threatening check, take the pawn, move the queen, push, and with 3 pawns and the knight, there's no way to do anything. So once again, I chose this game because I felt that it just showed a very simple play by white, step-by-step improvement. There was a little bit of a mistake, a little bit of a moment where black kind of managed to equalize. If that wasn't gonna, happen, probably, this game would be even better. But I just feel that it was important to understand how to play with the bishop pair, how to have patience, how to step-by-step improve your position. You have control over the center. Don't necessarily rush to get to trade everything. You want to try to create a play on the other side of the board as well. And of course, I like the idea that sometimes we mess up, but we come back from it. We can still improve. We just need to have a little bit of patience. That's with this game. I hope you guys liked it. My next choice of game was played between Van Foreest and Duda. Van Foreest has had a great start of the year, winning Vaikanze, and I have been following him for quite some time now. We used to play in the same tournament, like we played a few years in the same tournament in France, and I would always see him so passionate and determined to get better. And Duda, of course, another very strong young chess player from Poland, who's shown tremendous like amazing games in the past few years. So definitely I thought, okay, there's no way I'm not going to show this game. And it also happens to be Sicilian, and I know a lot of people enjoy watching Sicilian games. So, and it's not a very long game either, more like a nice attacking game. So I thought I would show it. It was a Najdorf Sicilian. E4, C5, knight F3, B6, D4, C takes D4, knight takes D4, knight F6, knight C3, and A6. It's interesting because like the reason I kind of came across this game and I decided to show is because here after A6 there are lots of moves that white can play, like bishop E3, bishop G5, bishop E2, bishop C4. I don't know, H3, so many moves, but there was Van Foreest chose this queen D3 move, which it was kind of like more not a novelty, but it's a type of move that you usually don't make. You don't take your queen out early in the game. And I remembered, okay, I have a fond memory of this move because in 2019 in the US Women's Championship, I played a game myself. And I played such an idea in my game against Irina Krush. She actually, I had white pieces and she had black pieces, and she played knight c6. I went bishop g5, and here I played queen d3. And it was a similar idea. And you know, when I saw the game, I thought, oh, similar idea. Let's see how it went for him. But unfortunately, it didn't go as great as that game went for me. But I think it's certainly an interesting idea to consider. Oftentimes, people in the Sicilian or against the Sicilian place the queen in d2 in order to have, you know, potential ideas, you know, on the dark square. But or f3, I've seen it played often for white as well. But in d3 is interesting because you protect e4, you're still keeping the control over the center, and you also have the ability to bring it to d3, h3, depends what black plays as well. And I thought it's kind of an interesting choice. And I like black's approach of continuing their his development, of course. Knight bd7, bishop e2, e6, and now, you know, black wants some b5, so white decided to stop it by pushing a4. And this position is pretty balanced. b6, castle, bishop b7, and it seems that up to this point, everything went according to plan. Other people have played this previously, but in this position, white went for somewhat of a novelty, I guess, queen g3. The point is that you're keeping, of course, those two pawns under attack to make it difficult for black to finish development, but you're moving in the queen from the protection of the e4 pawn, which is maybe not ideal. Bishop g5 has been tried here by Ganesh. He was a 2000 player. The point 2100, and the game was from 2008. There was a gameplay like this, which is kind of interesting, I think. H6, and white took. Rook d1, bishop e7, and then white continued with f4, and so on. And yeah, they had a pretty good. It's kind of the typical plan for white. But Van Foreest came up with this interesting idea of giving up this pawn for the initiative and to take advantage of black's king in the center. And it's not so easy for black to bring this king to safety. And I think that's what he thought. well, it wasn't really like that. It didn't happen like that, but that was probably the whole idea, that it's not going to be easy for black to bring the king to safety, and white, you know, gave up a pawn, but we'll have something. But no. Rook e1, knight f6, bishop d2. And you know what? I remember years back, I was reading, and I want to do that once again, because I think those were very interesting books. The books of Viktor Korchnoi. Viktor Korchnoi was a great chess player who believed that it doesn't matter if the pawn is poisonous, you should still take it and try to defend. And maybe that was Duda's approach as well. Just take the pawn and then see afterwards what you're going to do next. d5. Defend it. The bishop, keep the e file closed so that there's no way for white to somehow sacrifice in e6, get the pieces into play, and reach your king. Bishop f3. Now this probably was a small mistake that Van Foreest did. I think in this position, white maybe should go for bishop g5 or bishop f4. I don't particularly like the placement of the bishop in d2. I think that bishop can be improved somewhere. Also, in some situation, black may be considering to push the central pawn, so you want to make sure, you know, that's not an option. In some situations, black can also play bishop d6 and give up the g7 pawn and then go rook g8, right, for the attack. So having the bishop, you know, in g5 or f4 can certainly be helpful, because there's not going to be bishop d6. And if, for example, you play like, I don't know, like this move, for example, you can play c3. You have to be careful about that pawn in some situations, of course. But you can castle. And then white can play b4. You know, the point is that white will be able to take black's bishop pair. You either take the knight here, or you go bishop e7, which will allow knight c6, so it's one or the other. You play bishop f3, which I think was a mistake. Why was it a mistake? Because although it feels that you're actually opening up the file, you do not have a sacrifice. And you did give up a pawn, and if you don't have a way to try to get back this, you know, this pawn, it's not going to be very good. Bishop c5. And now black went from having a bishop in e4 to having a knight in e4, which is going to be much stronger, because now we'll have the opportunity to make more trades. Black has an extra pawn, and more trades are going to happen. The closer we go to the endgame, the more chances black has to win, I think, because they have an extra pawn. So b4, bishop d6, and now bishop back. Of course, there was a possibility for black to take after that, rook c8, queen, maybe queen e7. And now in this position, queen c7. The point is that if you go bishop takes b4, of course, there's knight c6. So you don't really want to allow this. Even if you took another pawn, white can probably take here. You don't have that rook g8 and taking g2 anymore. They also can play c3 after that. You can play rook, bringing the rook to d1 maybe with potential sacrifices. The bishop is going to be very strong. There's no need for that with black. With black, you need to try to find the right way to bring your king to safety, and you'll see more later. Queen c7. and white played queen h3. A mistake, after which the game goes downhill. He's trying desperately, I think he was trying to make this sacrifice work. Knight takes e6, pawn takes, queen takes, then some f3, maybe this king will be in the center. These were probably white's ideas here, but seriously, they didn't seem to work. And that's and here the reason is black can make this very simple move, and all of white's ideas of attack are gone, and black stays with an extra pawn. Look at this beautiful move. Look at this super beautiful move. Short castle. You do not have a sacrifice. You do not have a mate. I have an extra pawn. This is hanging as well. That c2 pawn is kind of weak. There's pressure in h2 as well. Let's not forget about that. Yeah. By the way, I haven't pointed that out, of course, after queen c7 we had a threat there, but maybe because h3 for example wouldn't work, because I think we would do something similar. But maybe in that position, white could have played maybe white could have played c4. That would be like a small tactical idea that could have helped white open up a little bit more. You can never take in h2. Just trying to do this. You obviously cannot take with the pawn. If you take with the queen, the idea is maybe knight f5. You know, trying to put some pressure. But I really like the way black continued this. You know, extra pawn, simple chess. Trade, bishop c5. I'm willing to make another trade and take your c2 pawn. Rook f1. We're also threatening, by the way, this and getting the pawn. So taking in d4 and c2, or pushing and taking that one. And now black took, rook a8. In order to avoid rook takes a1 and bishop takes d4. And now look at that, bringing the piece closer, offering a trade because we have an extra pawn. And if you're gonna take here and try to go for the end game, oopsie, what did I do? I'm sorry guys, I made a mistake. I've made a mistake, I apologize. Fixing it. It got fixed, I think. And now it is basically game over. If we make this trade, now we go e5. There's no way for white to save themselves. But f3 was played, and now the final move of the game, rook to a2, and white resigned. I mean, if you take the knight, this would happen, and you lose the knight as well. And you don't really have a way, like if you move the bishop, we take here, and basically it is just game over. So the reason I showed this game is because, well, first I thought it was an interesting idea. This queen d3, queen g3 was kind of an interesting idea to give up the pawn. But you can see that not in all situations where you give up the pawn, it is going to be game over. I mean, sometimes the opponent takes it and you don't have much. If you do sacrifice a pawn, make sure you find the right way to keep your initiative and actually take advantage of your opponent's king in the center. If you don't see that, do not give up material. So this was a novelty, but maybe not the best. I think white should keep up with, you know, these ideas of development, d-file, this is weak, and so on. And the last game that I chose to show for today was this game that was played between Bluebaum and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Shakhriyar, he's an amazing chess player. It's very hard to beat, and I don't know. I like to finish with a game where someone who's supposedly a little bit weaker wins. Maybe that's why I chose this game. But no, also I really liked it. It was a Grunfeld, and in Grunfeld and an opening that Mamedyarov plays, he got to lose it. So let's see how that game went. D4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, e3, g6, e4, bishop g7. Because you know, in the beginning when you saw the way the game went, you could have asked me what kind of Grunfeld? No Grunfeld. That was something completely different. I know, but it transposed into a Grunfeld. Pawn takes, and it's kind of nice actually to play it on this move order compared to the typical one, which would be like this. If you actually play with knight c3 and you try to go for this line, you see you have the knight in c3, so now you have to go for the line with e4 and takes, and then, okay, this is a classical, very famous line, but you have to go for this. But the way white played it, you are still getting a Grunfeld, right? Because black here played bishop d7, didn't play c6 to try to protect. I mean, that could have been a Schlechter. He's letting you the opportunity to take, so you are taking now, but basically in black's advantage, like for white, the plus is the fact that there's no knights in c3. So when you play e4, this knight needs to move. It cannot take here and start attacking the center. The negative or bad point for white is that then instead of having the knight in c3, they actually have the pawn here. And when they play e4, which is exactly the move that white played, white basically lost a move because they played e3 and e4 in 2 moves. So there's always a plus and a minus. Knight there, and now h3. The point is that white does not have sufficient defense on the d4 pawn, so you're playing h3 in order to avoid bishop g4 and trying to undermine the protection of the pawn. Castle, knight c3, d5, bishop e3. Now, I personally like this kind of idea for white, to play d5 and getting the space. And now, okay, if you're going to give out the bishop there, we're super happy. We have potential attacks. That's not going to happen. So I personally like to push this pawn forward. Even if we're giving the e5 outpost, it will not be something super big. Like if black plays here, we can go maybe bishop f4, not to allow the knight to come, you know, to e5, to d5. But Bluebaum decided to go for bishop e3 instead. And after the capture, knight takes, of course, and bishop d7. Black has to finish their development, and they certainly want this knight to go to c6. They cannot bring it immediately because we're going to take and mess up his pawns if he does so immediately. And instead of doing that, bishop d7 to support the knight to go there. Very natural, still balanced position. White is finishing their development, knight c6, castle, and in this position there were quite some games played, and black usually would take in d4 and then go bishop c6, and then okay, if you trade the bishops, king takes. If you go queen b3, you know, he can go, so here you can go queen d4, put more pressure, bring in the rook on the d file. Pretty equal, right? The position is symmetrical, the pawns are symmetrical, there's not so much to be worried about. But black went for rook c8 instead. So Mamedyarov is basically coming with this novelty, waiting one more move with the trade in d4, or at least that was the idea, I believe. But guess what? White decided not to trade anymore. So we still have some symmetrical position. White has a slightly bit more space due to this pawn in e4. And it's a little bit easier for them to keep more pieces on the board. The knights, even the knights look the same. And it may seem like black's doing a little bit better because this fianchetto bishop is staying kind of well there, but what got to happen after knight b3, knight e5? I think here this would have been slightly better or more interesting. The idea is that you're taking control over the c4 square. Maybe you go knight c4, maybe you go bishop c4 first, then knight c4. But you have to try to trade a little bit some pieces, because even if it's so symmetrical, because of this pawn in e4, white can have a slightly better placement for the queen, but black doesn't quite. So they have to get rid of some pieces to make it easier for themselves, in my opinion, of course. Knight e5. And now Bluebaum wait for knight c5. I'm super happy. I think this is for this move. I really like this move because it's not so easy for black to chase away. That pawn is weak. The queen will go to b3, has a place. Then the rooks come on central files, and black is struggling to place their queen somewhere. Queen b3, e6. And now, because we pretty much have all our pieces pretty well placed, white probably realized in case of rook d1, the queen just moves and there's nothing. So they decided to take advantage of the badly placed knight in b6. a5. Knight went to d7, and it seems like, ooh, now black is trading, so they will be doing really well because a piece is off the board. And what? Knight b5, a6, queen b4. So what are we dealing with once again? Seems to have been kind of a, I don't want to say recurring, but theme of today. I didn't plan it exactly that way. I just kind of liked some of the games, of course, but bishop pair. White has the bishop pair, and the position is opened here, and he has slightly more space. This knight doesn't quite have a good location to be placed on. Knight e5 should have probably been played. Mamedyarov went knight b8. It's probably very similar. I didn't quite see a big difference. Makes, in my opinion, a little bit more sense to go a little bit more active. This move, I don't think it would work due to knight f3 check. So if you want to bring this knight somehow on a slightly better location, probably it should be 3e5, in my opinion. But yeah, he played it through b8. Still, like, kind of similar. Rook c1, knight c6, queen a3. Oopsie. Rook fc1, I'm sorry. Rook c1, knight c6, queen a3. We have to keep this pawn protected. Oops. That knight is pinned. We can try to double. Maybe we'll have potential captures in a6, pawn takes, and then take in c6 and win a pawn. This part of the game is very natural until white gave out that pawn. You can also go back, or you can take this other pawn. It's always tricky which one to take. This could have been a line to be played. But now I think black can take here, and you will get the chance to take your a6 pawn back. You have the bishop here, but since the pawns all stay on the king side, there's not so much for them to keep pressing for a win. But now Mamedyarov decided to take this pawn. And this is what happens when you take a central pawn and it's with the queen and it gets kind of stuck. Rook c1. Where should this queen go? What do you guys think? In my opinion, d8, e7. White will get their pawn back, but these pawns are doubled. You got me there to stay and defend it. I may have to play rook a8 because if I try to do something like this, maybe a4, and you take it later, you keep your double pawns, but those can be very annoying. And if you go rook a8 now, there is this check which actually makes you lose the game. So you can go rook there. And okay, bishop pair is gone. There's not so much to do anymore. Simple chess. Knight d4 was played instead. Kind of crazy to see that. I thought it was kind of crazy to see that Mamedyarov blundered this easily. And this easily, okay. I mean, I'm a little bit too tough right now. I mean, I really like his style and everything. And I think a lot of us are looking for these kind of games when you see a very strong player that you like. It's not like you. I mean, this sounds strange a little bit the way I wanted to say it, but you want to try to find games also when they mess up too, to realize that nobody's perfect. We can all blunder, and you just need to understand where you're blundering and try to avoid those kind of mistakes in the future. So the queen had to go back, but knight d4 was the blunder because black completely forgot probably here about the queen in h4 being trapped. And after bishop here, he resigned because it is clear that after capturing, queen takes. And now if you go queen to h5, there's g4, which traps the queen. There's nothing you can do to save yourself. So bishop g5 just traps the queen. There were tons of and so many really, really great games this week with the European Club Cup taking place, and I think some other tournaments. I hope the games I chose were interesting to you. So once again, so we had Svane against Kamsky, which was a game where there was a lot of focus on getting a better position, more like, how to say, like more space, really nicely placed pieces. And then I think it was really nice to see how white step by step improved the position. Even if they lost their advantage at some point, they kind of gradually improved, creating a weakness on the other side of the board, getting the outpost in d6, placing a knight there, and step by step just improving the position, basically. Then there was this game of Van Foreest where there was an interesting novelty from white side, but unfortunately giving up the pawn didn't really help white. They actually didn't really have a way to get the pawn back. Things were getting kind of not really helpful for them. And then this last game where it was pretty balanced throughout until black got their queen stuck in the center. And probably, I mean, I think Mamedyarov was probably trying to play for a win, of course, here if you miss bishop g5, but he probably in his mind he thought this knight will be placed really greatly in the center. The king would have to move, the queen would come back to d8, and then okay, they can take this bishop in f3 as well. It's after that. That's what they wanted to do. But no, that didn't seem to happen. So small blunders can lead to losses. These were the 3 games that I had prepared for today. I hope next week there will be even nicer games. I really hope you guys enjoyed it and had stuff to learn from these games. I've been having trouble, as you guys have noticed. I have been having trouble accessing the chat of this video, and I'm gonna maybe try one more time and see if you guys have any questions before we finish. Not sure, because Let's see. Why am I problem? There's a problem in my chat, and I don't know why. Ah, here. Okay, finally I was able to get the chat. If you guys have any questions about the games, I will take a few. Oh, you guys, okay. Seems that everything was going well. No questions. I think I answered most of those as I was talking. I'll be more mindful next time. This is day one, my day one of GM residency. I'm really looking forward to the entire month of April. Thank you so much for tuning in on St. Louis Chess Club's YouTube channel. Be sure to check out some of the other videos that the club has made. There's lots of great material to help you improve. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the videos, and give them a thumbs up if you like them too, so that we know what more videos to create. And check out the Twitch channel as well. And I will see all of you very soon. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.